The night was quiet. Only the sound of wind passing through the trees broke the silence. A small wooden house stood alone near the edge of the valley, far from the nearest town. Inside, a young human man named Ryan was fixing an old solar heater. Life on the edge of the colony was peaceful but lonely. He liked the quiet, the stars, and his simple life. But that night, everything changed. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the woods behind his house. It was not a tree falling or an animal running. It was something heavy, something fast. Ryan stood still, holding his breath. Then he saw a flash of light through the trees. He grabbed his flashlight and carefully stepped outside. The wind was stronger now, blowing leaves and dust into the air. Ryan walked toward the noise, past the trees, until he saw something strange. A deep mark in the ground, like something had crashed from the sky and slid across the dirt. Then he heard breathing. Soft, fast breathing, like someone was in pain. He moved the flashlight slowly, and then he saw her. A girl, not human. She was lying near a broken bush, half covered in leaves. Her skin was pale blue with a soft glow under the moonlight. Her clothes were torn, her hair messy, and one leg looked injured. She had small, elf-like ears and large silver eyes filled with fear. She lifted her head weakly. "Don't call anyone," she whispered. Ryan stepped back in shock. He had seen aliens before in the colony town, but never like this. Never this close. Never this hurt. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said slowly. Her eyes didn't trust him, but she didn't have the strength to run. "Can you walk?" he asked. She shook her head. Without saying more, Ryan bent down and carefully lifted her into his arms. She was cold, lighter than he expected, and trembling. He took her back to his house and placed her gently on the couch. She tried to speak again. "Don't report me, please." Ryan looked at her, unsure what to say. "You're hurt. I won't do anything until I fix your leg." He brought a first aid kit and some warm blankets. He cleaned the cuts and wrapped her injured leg. She winced but said nothing. Her silver eyes watched him the whole time. "What's your name?" he asked. "Zira." "Zira. Okay. I'm Ryan." He gave her water, and she drank it slowly. For a few minutes, there was only silence between them. Outside, the wind had stopped. The stars were bright again. "Where did you come from?" he asked gently. Zira looked away. "I escaped from them." "Who?" She didn't answer. Ryan didn't push. He could see she was scared, truly scared. He noticed a strange bracelet on her arm, made of metal with a glowing line across it. She tried to cover it when she saw him looking. "You don't have to tell me anything," he said. "But if someone's after you, you should rest first." She looked surprised. "You believe me?" "I don't know what I believe yet," Ryan admitted. "But I do know you're in trouble. And I don't turn away someone who's hurt." Zira's eyes softened just a little. She pulled the blanket around her and closed her eyes. Within minutes, she was asleep. Ryan sat nearby, watching her. His heart was beating faster than usual. This wasn't a normal night. He didn't know who Zira really was, or what she was running from. But one thing was clear. She needed help. And somehow, he had just stepped into something much bigger than himself. Later that night, Ryan walked outside to get some air. The woods were still. But as he looked up, he saw something that made his stomach twist. 4 small dots in the sky, moving slowly in formation. Ships. Not human ships. They were scanning the area with soft beams of light. They were searching for something, or someone. He looked back toward his house, where Zira was sleeping. Something told him that the quiet life he once knew was now over. The morning sun was rising slowly behind the hills, painting the sky in soft orange and pink colors. Birds flew above the trees, but Ryan couldn't enjoy the peaceful scene. His mind was full of questions. He had barely slept. The strange alien girl, Zira, was still in his house. Still hurt, still hiding. He made some tea and checked on her. Zira was sitting on the couch now, awake but silent. She looked out the window carefully, as if she expected someone to burst through the door at any moment. "How do you feel?" Ryan asked as he walked in. Zira didn't answer at first. Then she said, "Better. Thank you." Ryan nodded. "You're safe here. For now." Zira looked at him. "They'll come for me. They always do." "Who are they?" Ryan asked, pulling a chair close. "Tell me what's going on. I need to know what I'm up against." Zira hesitated. Her hands clutched the edge of the blanket tightly. After a moment, she spoke. "I was a student on one of the science moons near planet Archer. I wasn't a soldier. I wasn't a criminal. But I found something. Something I wasn't supposed to see. I copied a file from their central system. I thought it was just research." Ryan leaned forward. "What kind of file?" Zira's voice dropped to a whisper. "Proof. Evidence of war plans. My leaders were preparing to destroy an entire human colony, to blame it on another race, so they could start a war and take more planets. I couldn't stay silent." Ryan's eyes widened. "That's massive." Zira nodded. "I tried to give it to someone I trusted, but they betrayed me. I was arrested and placed on a prison ship. They didn't even give me a trial. I escaped when the ship entered this sector. But they're hunting me now, with a full army." Ryan stood up and started pacing. "You're saying an alien empire is trying to start a war, and you're the only one who has the proof." Zira nodded again. She reached into her coat and pulled out a small glowing crystal. "This holds the file. I've hidden it from their scanners, but it won't last forever." Ryan looked at the crystal. It was no larger than his thumb, yet it held something powerful, something dangerous. "You shouldn't have told me this," he said. "I know," Zira replied. "But I had no choice. You helped me. You didn't turn me in. I still could." Zira looked at him directly. "But you won't." Ryan didn't respond. He walked to the window and looked at the trees. Something inside him told him she was telling the truth, and that scared him more than anything. He turned back to her. "So what now?" "I need to reach someone who can take this and stop the war. But I can't do it alone. My ship is destroyed. I can't run anymore. You want me to help you." Zira looked down. "No, I don't want to bring danger to your home. But I'm out of options." Just then, a sharp sound filled the room, like a humming buzz. Ryan turned to his old monitor near the wall. The local network scanner had picked up something. Unauthorized patrol ships moving within 5 kilometers. Not human ones. "They're close," he said. Zira stood slowly. Her injured leg was better, but not fully healed. She winced as she took a step. "They must have tracked part of the crash trail. We need to hide you. Now." Ryan helped her down to the basement under his house. It was mostly storage and tools, but it had a hidden trapdoor he had once built during a local storm season. It wasn't much, but it was something. "Stay here," he said. "No noise. No lights." Zira nodded and climbed into the space. Ryan covered the trapdoor with an old rug and pushed a chair over it. Not long after, 2 alien patrol ships hovered above the house. Then metallic footsteps approached. Ryan opened the door before they could knock. 2 armored alien soldiers stood there. Their armor was black and silver, with strange symbols glowing on the chest. Their faces were hidden behind dark helmets. "Human," one said in a robotic voice. "We are searching for a dangerous criminal. Female, blue skin, wounded. Seen anyone strange?" Ryan kept his face calm. "I live alone. Haven't seen anything." The soldier scanned the area with a glowing device. It beeped once, but then went quiet. They looked at each other. "We'll continue the search," the soldier said. "Stay inside. If you see anything, report it immediately." Ryan gave a small nod. "Of course." The soldiers turned and walked away. Their ships lifted into the air and vanished into the sky. Ryan waited a long moment before locking the door. He went back to the basement and lifted the trapdoor. Zira looked up, silent and tense. "They're gone. For now," he said. Zira climbed out slowly, eyes wide with worry. "They're not going to stop," she said. "This is only the beginning." Ryan sighed and looked at the glowing crystal again. He had a quiet life, a simple one. But now he had a choice, and it could change the galaxy. Ryan sat on the old wooden chair by the door, his mind racing. The silence in the house felt heavy, as if something was about to happen, and he couldn't stop it. Outside, the wind had started blowing again, pushing the leaves around. But that wasn't what worried him. It was the patrols, the soldiers, the ships, the alien army searching for Zira. He had to act fast. But how? He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't even a fighter. All he had were his hands, his quick thinking, and a small hidden basement where Zira was hiding. That wasn't enough to stop an army. Zira was pacing in the living room, restless, her injured legs still wrapped up in bandages. Ryan could see the worry in her eyes. "I told you," she said, her voice low. "They won't stop looking. They'll send more." He stood up, trying to think of a plan. "We can't just keep hiding. I need to think of something. Maybe I can send a message. Warn someone." "No," Zira interrupted, shaking her head. "They'll track it. Everything I touch, they can trace. I'm not safe anywhere." He ran a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. This wasn't just a matter of saving her. It was about stopping a war. A war that could destroy innocent people. He couldn't just sit and wait. He had to do something. "Then we leave," Ryan said finally. "I'll help you get out of here. I have an old farm in the next valley. No one goes there. If we can get there, we can figure out what to do next." Zira looked uncertain but didn't argue. "It's too risky. They'll catch us before we make it." "I don't care," Ryan replied. "I can't just sit here and do nothing. I'll get you there, and we'll figure it out together." She hesitated but then nodded. "Okay, we'll try." Ryan quickly gathered a few things, some food, water, and the glowing crystal Zira had been hiding. As he packed, he kept glancing out the window, watching the sky. The patrol ships hadn't returned yet, but it was only a matter of time before they would. "I'll take the back roads," he said, grabbing his old jacket. "It's safer, but it'll be slow. Stay low and stay quiet." Zira pulled the hood of her coat up over her head and followed him to the back door. Ryan opened it carefully, scanning the area. There were no soldiers in sight, but that didn't mean they weren't watching. The sun was still low in the sky, and the valley was quiet, too quiet. Ryan moved quickly, leading Zira through the tall grass and towards the wooded area beyond. The trail wasn't far, but it was hidden, and that was what made it safe. They walked in silence, each footstep heavy with the knowledge that they were being hunted. Ryan's heart was pounding in his chest, and his mind kept replaying every moment since he'd found Zira. He still didn't know everything about her, but he knew one thing for sure: he couldn't just leave her to be captured. As they moved deeper into the woods, Ryan heard a low hum in the distance. He froze, holding his breath. "Did you hear that?" Zira whispered, her eyes wide. Ryan nodded. "It's them. They're coming." He grabbed Zira's arm and pulled her into a nearby thicket, hiding behind thick trees and bushes. They crouched down, both of them holding their breath, listening to the hum grow louder. The patrol ships were getting closer. There were more of them now, at least 3, maybe 4. Ryan felt the sweat on his forehead as the ships passed overhead. He dared not look up, but he could hear their engines, their scanners sweeping the area. Every second felt like an eternity. Finally, the noise faded, and Ryan slowly let out the breath he had been holding. "We can't go back," he said, looking at Zira. "They'll know we're here. We need to move forward." Zira nodded. "I'll follow you, but they won't stop. I'm not sure how long we can keep running. Ryan helped her up, and they continued on their way. Every now and then, they stopped to listen, to watch, but the forest seemed quiet now, almost too quiet. Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, even though he couldn't see anyone. They reached the farm by evening, but the shadows of the night made everything seem darker, more threatening. The small house stood empty, just as Ryan remembered. He led Zira inside and locked the door behind them. The house was old, but it had everything they needed to stay hidden: food, tools, a small bed. Ryan collapsed onto a chair by the table, exhausted. He stared at the window, the moonlight shining through the cracks in the old wooden walls. It felt safe here, but he knew it wouldn't last long. Zira sat across from him, her eyes distant. I thought I could run away forever, but now I know. I can't. They won't stop until they have me. We'll figure something out, Ryan said, his voice calm but unsure. I won't let them take you. I promise. Zira didn't respond, but her eyes softened for a moment. Ryan felt the weight of her gratitude, even though she didn't say anything. He was the only one standing between her and the army that was coming for her, and he wasn't going to back down. But deep down, he knew that the war was bigger than just the two of them. He was caught in something far beyond his control, but no matter what, he wasn't going to let Zira face it alone. The days passed slowly. Each one felt heavier than the last. Ryan spent most of his time in the small farmhouse, keeping to himself, watching over Zira, and trying to make sure they weren't discovered. The soldiers had stopped searching the immediate area, but Ryan knew it wasn't over. They were still out there, watching, waiting. He could feel it in his bones. Zira was doing better. Her injured leg had healed enough for her to walk, though she still moved slowly. She spent most of her time sitting by the window, watching the road in the distance. Her thoughts were always distant, lost in whatever mission she had been on before arriving here. The silence between them was heavy, but neither of them knew how to break it. One afternoon, Ryan sat at the table, cleaning an old rifle he had found in the barn. The weapon hadn't been used in years, but it made him feel like he could at least defend himself. Zira sat by the window, her eyes narrowed as she looked at the sky. We can't keep hiding forever, she said, her voice quiet but firm. Ryan looked up, setting the rifle down. I know, but what do you expect me to do? I'm not a soldier. I don't have a fleet or an army to fight back with. Zira's gaze met his, and for the first time, he saw something new in her eyes. Determination. I don't need a soldier. I need someone who is willing to make a choice. Ryan raised an eyebrow. What kind of choice? I've been running from them for so long. But I've realized something. If I stay here, I'll eventually be caught. The proof I have, the file, will be lost. The war will happen. But if we can get it to the right people, to Earth, maybe we can stop it. Maybe we can end it before it starts. You're asking me to help you run even further. Ryan's voice was thick with uncertainty. He didn't want to risk his life, but he could see that Zira was serious. Yes, she said, standing up slowly. I know it's dangerous, but I have nowhere else to go. You're the only person who has helped me. Ryan's heart raced. He had always lived quietly, without attention or danger. He had no desire to throw himself into a war, but Zira was right. She was running out of time. They both were. He looked at her, seeing the fear and hope in her eyes. I can't just leave everything behind, Ryan said softly. I can't leave my home, my people, everything I've known. Zira stepped closer. You don't have to leave your whole life. Just help me get the information to Earth. You don't have to fight. You just need to get me to a place where I can send the file, where I can prove everything. Once Earth knows, the war can be stopped. They'll be ready. You won't be alone. Ryan stood up, pacing around the room. The idea of leaving everything behind seemed impossible. But what if Zira was right? What if they didn't act, and the war started anyway? What if, by helping her, he could prevent innocent people from suffering? He stopped and turned to face her. If we do this, if I help you, what happens next? Zira looked at him seriously. Once we send the file, I'll be free. Earth will protect me. I won't have to run anymore. But you'll never be the same again. You'll be a part of something much bigger than either of us. Ryan took a deep breath. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing on him. There was no going back once they started this, but he also knew there was no other choice. I'll do it, he said finally. I'll help you get to Earth. But we need a plan. We can't just run out in the open. Zira nodded, relief washing over her face. I'll get us to the nearest spaceport. We'll use a smuggler's ship. It's risky, but it's the only way. Ryan had heard stories about smugglers, but he didn't know any personally. It sounded dangerous, but it was the best option they had. Do you know how to contact them? I do, Zira said, her voice steady. I've been in contact with them before, but I need to make sure they're still in the area. Ryan grabbed the old rifle from the table and checked it once more. He wasn't a fighter, but if it came to that, he would protect Zira. She had become his responsibility, whether he wanted it or not. Let's go then, he said. We can't wait any longer. Zira nodded. She looked ready, though Ryan could see the worry in her eyes. She had been through so much, and the future was still uncertain, but there was no turning back now. They left the farmhouse, walking quickly and quietly down the dirt road. Ryan kept a close watch on the trees and the hills around them. He knew the soldiers could be anywhere, watching, waiting. Zira moved beside him, her pace steady despite her earlier injury. She was stronger than he realized. As they walked, Ryan felt the weight of what they were doing. They weren't just running from an alien army. They were running for the future. The fate of millions could rest in their hands, but he didn't know if they would make it. He didn't know what would happen next. But he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't stop now. Not when the stakes were this high. Ryan and Zira moved quickly through the woods, staying low to the ground and taking the less traveled paths. Every step felt heavy with uncertainty, but Ryan didn't stop. Zira was beside him, her steps careful, her eyes scanning the surroundings constantly. The spaceport they were heading for was a long walk from the farmhouse, but they couldn't afford to take the risk of using the roads or vehicles that might be tracked. The sun was beginning to set, and the shadows grew longer. Ryan's heart beat faster with each step. He couldn't help but feel that they were being watched, though he never saw anyone following them. The air was thick with tension. As they walked, Zira spoke softly, her voice almost lost in the rustling of the leaves. There's a man I know, one of the smugglers. He's a good man, but he doesn't trust easily. He won't help us unless we can prove we're not a threat. Do you have a way to contact him? Ryan asked, trying to keep his voice calm. A signal, a code. Yes, Zira said, her voice tight. But the last time I used it, he warned me to stay off the grid. If he finds out I'm involved with the military or the army, he'll walk away. He has his own reasons for staying hidden. They came to a small clearing, and Ryan stopped, looking around. Something didn't feel right. Zira paused next to him, her eyes narrowing as she also felt the change in the air. There was no sound now, no rustling of animals or birds. It was eerily quiet. Ryan, Zira whispered, I think we're being followed. Before he could respond, the sound of footsteps reached his ears. They were quick, steady, and there was more than one set of them. Ryan's instincts screamed for him to run, but it was too late. From behind the trees, 3 figures appeared, emerging from the shadows like ghosts. They were wearing the same black, silver-armored suits as the soldiers Ryan had seen before. One of the soldiers stepped forward. His voice was calm, almost cold. You didn't think we wouldn't find you, did you, Zira? Zira's face went pale. She took a small step back, but Ryan stepped in front of her instinctively, his heart pounding. Who are you? Ryan demanded. His voice was steady, but inside, He was terrified. The soldier didn't answer directly. Instead, he tilted his head and examined Ryan for a moment, then gave a short laugh. "Just a friend." "Well, I was. But you've made things complicated, haven't you, Zira?" Ryan's eyes widened in disbelief. "You know her?" "Of course," the soldier said. "We've been following her since she stole the file. She never should have gotten away, but that's what happens when you trust the wrong people." Zira looked down at the ground, her face a mix of guilt and fear. "I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt." The soldier stepped closer, and Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. "That's where you're wrong. People will get hurt. Your little game here is over." Ryan's mind raced. This wasn't just about the file. It was about something much bigger. These soldiers were serious. They weren't just hunting Zira. They were hunting both of them now. His grip tightened around the rifle. He wasn't sure what he was going to do, but he couldn't let Zira fall into their hands. "What do you want with her?" Ryan demanded. The soldier's cold smile spread across his face. "Oh, we're not here for her. Not anymore. We're here for you." Ryan's stomach dropped. Before he could react, the soldier's hand reached inside his jacket and pulled out a small device. A tracker. "You've been marked human," he said. "You're a part of this now, and you will pay for your choice to help her." Zira's eyes went wide. "No, you can't do this. He has nothing to do with this." The soldier raised his hand, signaling to the others behind him. "Take them. Now." In an instant, 2 more soldiers lunged at Ryan. He barely had time to react before one of them grabbed his arm, twisting it painfully behind his back. The other soldier knocked the rifle from his hands, sending it crashing to the ground. "Let him go," Zira shouted, her voice desperate. She pushed forward, but she was too slow. One of the soldiers grabbed her by the arm, pulling her away from Ryan. "Stop," Ryan yelled, struggling against the soldier holding him. He kicked back, but the soldier was too strong. His movements were slow, each pull against the grip making his body ache. "We can still stop this," Zira said urgently, turning to the soldier holding her. "We have a chance. I just need to." But her words were cut short as the soldier's grip tightened, and she fell silent. Ryan felt his heart race with fear for her. If they took her now, it was over. Just then, the sound of engines reached his ears. Ryan looked up, his heart leaping in his chest. A small transport ship appeared, descending from the sky. It was coming fast, too fast. "Get down," the soldier shouted, pushing Zira to the ground and drawing his weapon. But it was too late. The ship's door opened, and a figure leaped out, landing between Ryan and the soldiers with a loud thud. He was tall, dressed in dark, simple clothes, and he looked straight at Ryan with a cold, calculating expression. "You didn't think you could get away that easily, did you, Zira?" the man said, his voice sharp. He raised his hand to his chest and activated something hidden under his sleeve. The soldiers looked shocked. "You?" The man smiled grimly. "Let's just say I know exactly where to find you. All of you." Ryan didn't understand who this man was, but he knew one thing for sure. This was the chance they needed. The soldiers were distracted for just a moment. It was their only shot. The man who had dropped from the transport ship stood between Ryan and the soldiers, his dark eyes scanning the group. Ryan was still struggling against the soldier holding him, but the new arrival's presence brought a small spark of hope. The soldiers were confused for a brief moment, unsure of who this man was or why he was interfering. But that moment of hesitation was enough. "Who are you?" One of the soldiers barked, his hand hovering near his weapon. "Step aside. We are taking both of them." The man didn't respond immediately. Instead, he turned to Ryan, his eyes studying him carefully. "You don't look like a soldier," he said, his voice low and sharp. "But you're in deep now. Don't make things worse by trying to fight." Ryan wanted to ask questions to understand what was going on, but he didn't have time. The soldiers were closing in, and Zira was still on the ground, struggling against the grip of one of the soldiers. "Get away from her," Ryan shouted, forcing himself against the soldier holding him. The man who had arrived didn't hesitate. He stepped forward quickly, moving like a shadow, and in one fluid motion, he disarmed the soldier closest to Zira. The soldier's weapon clattered to the ground. Before anyone could react, the man grabbed the soldier by the arm and threw him to the side. The other soldiers froze, surprised by the sudden turn of events. "You should have known better," the man said to the soldiers, his voice cold and calm. Ryan stared at him, unsure of what to do. He had never been in a situation like this. He wasn't a fighter. He had never imagined that he would be caught in the middle of a war he didn't even know existed. But now, it seemed like there was no way out. "Move, now," the man barked at Ryan. "If you don't want to end up like them, you need to follow me." Before Ryan could react, Zira was on her feet again, pushing herself away from the soldier who had been holding her. She stumbled but didn't fall. She reached out to Ryan, her eyes wide with shock. "We have to go. Now." The soldiers were recovering, and Ryan could see their anger rising. "Get them," one of them yelled, his voice full of rage. But they weren't quick enough. The man who had appeared moved with terrifying speed, grabbing Zira and pulling her towards the transport ship. "Come on," the man shouted at Ryan. "This is your last chance." Ryan didn't hesitate. He ran, his legs pumping as he chased after the man, who was already leading Zira toward the ship. Behind him, the soldiers shouted and gave chase, but Ryan's mind was clear now. He wasn't going to stop. He couldn't. As they reached the transport ship, the man quickly opened the hatch and helped Zira inside. Ryan followed, barely managing to squeeze through before the hatch slammed shut behind him. The inside of the ship was small but sturdy. There were no windows, only soft lights and control panels that hummed quietly. The man quickly moved to the front of the ship, hitting a button that sent the ship lifting off the ground with a sudden jolt. "Hold on," the man shouted as he manipulated the controls. The ship shot forward, faster than Ryan expected, and they left the forest behind them, the soldiers and their pursuit growing smaller and smaller below. Ryan sat back in the seat, his heart still racing from the chase. Zira was beside him, her eyes still wide with shock. She looked at the man who had saved them, trying to figure him out. "Who are you?" Zira finally asked, her voice low but full of curiosity. The man turned to face them, his expression unreadable. "I'm just someone who doesn't want to see a war happen." Ryan frowned. "That doesn't answer my question." The man smiled, though it was more of a grin than anything else. "I'm someone who has been watching for a long time. You made a mistake, Zira, but that's not the worst thing you've done." Zira blinked, taken aback. "What do you mean?" "You stole something far more dangerous than you realize. That file you've been carrying, it's not just a war plan. It's a list of names of people who will be targeted if anyone finds out. I was hoping you wouldn't get caught, but now." He paused, looking at Ryan. "Now it's a lot more complicated." Ryan leaned forward, his hands shaking slightly. "What's that supposed to mean?" The man sighed, rubbing his forehead. "It means that they'll stop at nothing to get that file. Not just the army, but people higher up. And they'll do whatever it takes to get it back." The ship continued to fly, moving through the sky. But Ryan felt as if time had slowed. He had no idea what he had just stepped into. This wasn't just about Zira anymore. This was about something much bigger. And now he was involved whether he liked it or not. "We can't just run forever," Zira said softly, looking at Ryan. "We need to get the information to Earth. They're the only ones who can help us." Ryan nodded, though the uncertainty in his chest had only grown. They were running, and it felt like there was no safe place left. The only thing they could do now was keep moving forward, and hope that they could stay one step ahead of those chasing them. The man in front of them didn't speak again for a while, his eyes focused on the controls. The hum of the ship filled the silence. For a moment, Ryan felt like he was in a dream, caught up in something far bigger than himself, with no idea where it would end. But he knew one thing for sure. There was no turning back. The ship soared through the sky, its engines humming steadily as it sliced through the clouds. Ryan sat in silence, staring out the small window of the transport. The world below seemed so distant, so small, and yet it was the only world he had ever known. Now it felt like that world was slipping away, replaced by something far more dangerous and unknown. Zira sat beside him, her eyes focused on the control panel in front of them, but her thoughts were clearly elsewhere. Her expression was hard to read. Her face was still full of worry, but there was a flicker of something else beneath it, something more hopeful. "Where are we going?" Ryan finally asked, breaking the silence that had stretched between them for what felt like hours. The man who had saved them, the one who seemed to know more about this situation than anyone else, looked up briefly from the controls. He hadn't introduced himself yet, but Ryan didn't press the issue. They were all in this together now. "First stop," the man said, his voice quiet, "is a safe house, a place to lay low for a while. After that, we'll need to contact Earth. We can't keep running forever." Zira nodded, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and anxiety. "I know. I need to get the data to them. If Earth doesn't act soon, the war will start. And there's no turning back." Ryan could feel the weight of her words. He wasn't part of the galactic war, wasn't part of the political games that had led them here, but now he was involved. His decisions, his choices, could change the fate of billions. The responsibility felt like a heavy stone in his chest, but he couldn't back away. He had made a choice, and now he had to see it through. "How do we even contact Earth?" Ryan asked. "Isn't it too risky? What if they trace the signal?" Zira looked at him, her eyes searching his face. "It's risky, yes, but there's no other way. I have a contact on Earth, someone I trust. They'll help us, but we have to get the message to them first. We have to make it out of here." Ryan ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing. He thought about the soldiers they had escaped from, the ships searching for them, and the mysterious man sitting in front of them. There was so much he didn't understand, but one thing was clear: they couldn't stay here forever. Sooner or later, they would be found. "So, how long before we reach this safe house?" Ryan asked, trying to shift the focus away from the overwhelming pressure. "Not long," the man replied. "We'll be there in a few hours, but you should rest. You look exhausted." Ryan didn't feel tired, but he knew the man was right. His body was on high alert, and it was starting to wear him down. He leaned back in the seat, closing his eyes, trying to block out the thoughts that kept swirling in his mind. He had always lived a simple life, farming, fixing things, keeping to himself. But now, nothing was simple, and there was no way to escape it. He glanced over at Zira. She seemed calm, but her fingers were tapping nervously on the armrest. He could see the strain in her face, the fear that still lingered despite her strong exterior. She wasn't just running from soldiers. She was running for the future, for something much bigger than herself. Ryan realized that he wasn't just protecting her anymore. He was protecting the future of countless others. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the hum of the ship's engines. Ryan managed to rest a little, his mind growing quieter with each passing minute. When he finally opened his eyes, the ship was descending, slowly lowering toward a hidden landing pad in a secluded valley. The man glanced over at Ryan as the ship touched down. "We're here. Stay quiet. Stay low. We're not safe yet." Ryan nodded, his senses on high alert again. The moment they stepped outside the ship, he could feel the change in the air. The safe house was nothing like the farmhouse he had known. It was built into the side of a mountain, a small fortified compound hidden from view. There were no signs of life around, but Ryan had learned to trust his instincts, and right now, they were telling him to be cautious. The man led them to a small door built into the side of the mountain. He pressed a button, and the door slid open with a quiet hiss. Inside, the walls were lined with technology Ryan didn't recognize. Computers, scanners, and monitors, all showing different data. It looked like something out of a military base. "We need to lay low here for a while," the man said, closing the door behind them. "I'll get in touch with Earth, but it'll take some time. We need to stay out of sight." Zira stepped forward, her face serious. "We don't have much time. The longer we wait, the harder it will be to stop the war." The man gave a small nod. "I know. I'll make sure the message gets through. But for now, we need to rest, plan, and prepare for whatever comes next." Ryan felt the weight of everything they had to do, but as he looked at Zira, he saw something else in her eyes: hope. They were still alive, still fighting, and as long as they kept moving forward, there was a chance they could change the course of the future. As the door to the safe house closed behind them, Ryan couldn't help but think that this was only the beginning. The road ahead would be long and uncertain, but they had made it this far. And for the first time since he had met Zira, he felt a small spark of hope. Together, they might just be able to stop the war.